to coaches because I think at times coaches would look like somebody's looking over my shoulder. When you hire someone,
It's an honor for the few select players here just to have an opportunity to play in a game. When you think about all the basketball players in the United States and all over the world, and when you have this...
He was my GOAT. Those words from Jerry West carry weight that most people will never understand. The man whose silhouette became the NBA logo, the very symbol of basketball itself, didn't hand out respect easily. He represented something greater than just a great player or a smart executive. He represented a gold standard. The people he chose to respect lived by the same obsessive pursuit of excellence that defined his entire life and career. Jerry West lost more finals than he won. 9 times he reached the championship stage in his playing career. Only once in a single magical season did he bring home the trophy. That 1969 victory came with the bittersweet honor of being named Finals MVP on a losing team, a singular and haunting distinction. That pain, that heartbreak, shaped everything he became over the decades. It taught him what true greatness really meant and how to recognize it in others. This video reveals the 5 players Jerry West respected above all others, not because of statistics, but because they reflected his obsession with excellence. They understood what it meant to chase perfection. If you're loving stories like this, give this video some hype. It really helps share these legend stories. Now let's go back to 1996 when West made a decision that changed the NBA forever. The first player West truly respected like a son was Kobe Bryant. This wasn't just about basketball mechanics or statistics. This was deeply personal. West saw something remarkable and special in a 17-year-old kid that nobody else saw. It was pure obsession. It was the same fire that burned inside West himself, pushing him toward relentless excellence. In 1996, the Lakers needed something special. West brought in Kobe from Charlotte, but getting him would cost Vlade Divac, a beloved center. Divac was in Europe when he got the news. He said it felt like being hit with a hammer. He threatened to retire rather than go to Charlotte, but West believed in Kobe so much that he convinced Divac to accept the trade. During a 20-minute workout, West became convinced that Kobe was the most talented prospect he had ever witnessed. West described the decision as a no-brainer in hindsight. It opened up cap space for Shaq and set the stage for the dynasty that would win 3 championships. West saw in young Kobe the same insatiable desire to be the best that burned inside him, with relentless intensity. West would later say that watching Kobe grow and evolve was like watching his own child grow up. Kobe's legendary Mamba mentality was there from the very beginning. West noticed that Kobe trained with intensity that went far beyond normal levels. He constantly looked in the mirror and self-assessed. West understood that kind of thinking because it was the same thinking that had kept him playing through pain for 14 years. Fear of failure. West called it his greatest motivational tool. He saw that same fear in Kobe. It drove the young player to work obsessively. In 2004, when Kobe considered leaving to play for a younger West with the Memphis Grizzlies, West talked him out of it. He told him he belonged in Los Angeles. West put Kobe's future ahead of his own desire to coach him. That's the kind of respect West had for Bryant. It was deeper than basketball. When Kobe died in 2020, West's grief was real. He said he felt like he had lost a son. He said Kobe was the greatest Laker of all time. West had watched a scared teenager become one of the greatest players the game has ever known. But while Kobe was the player West loved as a son, Michael Jordan was the player West identified as the gold standard. This was different. This was not a father-son relationship. This was respect built on perfection. West never admitted that anyone was better than Jordan. He famously said Jordan was the greatest player he had ever seen. Period. No qualification, no caveat. What made West respect Jordan most was his uncanny ability to play both offense and defense at the absolute highest level simultaneously. West himself had been a legendary defensive hawk during his playing days. He had little patience for offensive stars who didn't contribute defensively or help their teams on that end. But Jordan was completely different. Jordan absolutely dominated on both ends of the floor. He controlled the pace. He controlled the psychological tenor of the game. He made opponents understand that he was the superior competitor. West believed that Jordan ended the GOAT debate before it even started. Before Jordan, people debated whether Russell or Chamberlain or Johnson or Bird was greatest. But Jordan's dominance settled the question permanently. He won back-to-back three-peats separated by a hiatus in his prime. He did it through physical talent and mental obsession that West believed was unsurpassed. The fear of failure that West talked about, Jordan had it too. West said it drove him and drove him and drove him. He saw that same internal engine in Jordan. He could see it in the way Jordan deconstructed opponents. There was no question about who was better. Jordan made it undeniable. This standard that Jordan set became the benchmark for how West evaluated every player who came after. When West scouted prospects, he looked for what he called Jordan-esque traits: mental obsession, defensive versatility. the willingness to do whatever it took to win. This is why he had pursued Kobe so aggressively. Kobe had explicitly modeled his game and work ethic after Michael Jordan. West wasn't just building a team, he was building a culture of excellence that stretched from Jordan to Kobe to the next generation. But as time went on, West's perspective on greatness evolved. The game changed. The way you could be great changed. And that's when he had to defend someone people were criticizing. He had to defend LeBron James. West's defense of LeBron was one of the most striking things about his late career legacy. While critics focused on LeBron's finals record, West said that was grossly unfair and ridiculous. He knew why. He had lived through it himself. West made it to 9 finals and won only 1. Those losses continued to haunt him throughout his life. He compared losing the finals to looking at candy behind a store window. You can almost touch it. You can almost reach it, but you can't get there. That pain is indescribable. Getting to the finals is hard. Just getting there is an accomplishment that only the absolute best can achieve. Losing in the finals isn't a failure of character. It's facing the best team in the world on the biggest stage. West said that by his 3rd finals loss, he didn't want to play anymore. It took so much out of him emotionally. When he looked at LeBron's finals record, he didn't see weakness. He saw a player who had reached that mountaintop multiple times. He saw a player carrying teams that weren't the favorites. He saw a player who did everything. LeBron wasn't just a scorer, he was a rebounder, he was a passer, he was a defender. West called him a Swiss Army knife, a player who could do anything the team needed. West respected that versatility. What West really admired about LeBron was his exceptional basketball intelligence. He said if you don't respect what LeBron James does on the court, you don't truly know basketball. And that powerful statement was coming from someone who had forgotten more about basketball than most people would ever know in their entire lives. LeBron's uncanny ability to read the floor, to understand positioning, to know where the play was going before it happened, it was the kind of intelligence that only the greatest players ever possessed. West's defense of LeBron was personal because he understood the pain of finals losses. He had felt that same pain. He wasn't going to watch people dismiss LeBron's greatness because of a number in a win-loss column. West recognized that LeBron's contribution to his teams was so massive that the only way to judge him was by looking at the complete picture. And when you looked at the complete picture, LeBron James was one of the greatest players of all time. But before LeBron and Jordan, before Kobe, there was someone else who stood beside Jerry West. Not as a rival, but as a brother. His name was Elgin Baylor. And Baylor taught West about respect in a way that went beyond basketball. Elgin Baylor was the first true high flyer in the NBA. He added a vertical dimension to the game that literally had not existed before. He was the blueprint for players like Julius Erving and eventually Michael Jordan. West maintained that Baylor was the most talented player of his era. He called him the magician with the basketball. What West respected most about Baylor wasn't just his talent, it was his character. Baylor and West formed a duo that endured the pain of losing multiple finals together. That shared trauma created a bond closer than any championship could have created. West said that Baylor was a prince of a man. He never said derogatory things about others, even when the competitive nature of the game provoked anger. That kind of composure in a sport that demands intensity, that's something special. West came from a small town in West Virginia. He admitted he was naive about racism until he saw what Baylor had to face. He watched as a proud man confronted discrimination and responded with dignity. West learned that true greatness wasn't measured just in championships or statistics. It was measured in how you carried yourself. In 1959, there was a pivotal moment that defined the relationship and shaped how West viewed human dignity. The Minneapolis Lakers were traveling through a segregated country. When they arrived in Charleston, West Virginia, Baylor and the other black players were denied service at a local hotel and restaurant. Baylor refused to play in the game that night. He said he was not going to perform like an animal in a circus after being denied basic human dignity. That courageous stance left a lasting and profound impression on West. West admired Baylor's dignity and class. He recognized it as a seminal moment in the history of the league. This wasn't just about basketball. This was about moral courage. West respected that as much as any jump shot or defensive play. Years later, when Baylor served as general manager of the Los Angeles Clippers, West was a vocal advocate for his friend. He expressed disappointment over the way Baylor was mistreated, over the way he was denied decision-making power, over the way he wasn't given the dignity he deserved. To West, Baylor was a better man off the court than on it. That meant everything. As West moved further into his career as an executive, the game kept changing. West kept learning. In his later years with the Golden State Warriors, he became the primary advocate for Stephen Curry. His respect for Curry was so profound that he threatened to resign his job if the team traded away Curry's partner, Klay Thompson. In 2014, the Warriors were seriously considering trading Klay Thompson to Minnesota for Kevin Love. At the time, Kevin Love was one of the premier power forwards in the entire league. On paper, it looked like an obvious upgrade that would strengthen the team significantly. But West saw something that others completely missed. He saw that the NBA was moving toward a pace and space revolution that would change everything about how the game was played. And Curry needed a very specific kind of partner to thrive in that new system. West argued that Klay Thompson was the perfect player for Stephen Curry. Klay was a lockdown defender who didn't need the spotlight. He would defend the other team's best player and then step aside and let Curry lead. Klay gave Curry oxygen. He gave him room to operate. That symbiotic relationship was what made the system work. West took a hard line. He told the front office that trading Thompson would be an enormous mistake. When they didn't listen, he threatened to quit. He threatened to walk away. That kind of conviction, that kind of willingness to put his job on the line for his belief in a player, that's the ultimate form of respect. The Warriors listened to West. They kept Klay. Over the next several years, they won 4 championships. The dynasty that defined an era was built on West's vision and his respect for what Curry could do when he had the right pieces around him. West's respect for Curry went beyond the basketball court. He was captivated by Curry's character and humility. Here was a superstar who, despite his talent and success, remained loyal to his friends and relationships. He was humble about his achievements. He let his game speak for itself. West had come to understand something over his decades in basketball. The gold standard wasn't about one specific way of playing. It could be the aggressive style of Jordan and Bryant. It could be the intelligent style of LeBron James. It could be the humble style of Stephen Curry. What mattered was the character underneath. It was the commitment to excellence, the respect for the game, the way you carried yourself off the court. West's respect for these 5 players, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Elgin Baylor, and Stephen Curry, wasn't just focused on their professional accomplishments and accolades. It was deeply about what those accomplishments revealed about their character. It was about their obsession with excellence. It was about their dedication to being the best, not for glory or money, but because excellence was the only acceptable standard. These 5 players represented different eras of basketball history. They represented distinctly different playing styles and approaches. They represented different ways of being great in the sport. But they all shared something incredibly important and defining. They all had obsessive work ethic that drove their careers. They all had commitment to being complete, versatile players who could do whatever their team needed them to do successfully. They all possessed exceptional basketball intelligence, and they all had moral dignity that transcended the basketball court itself. West's legacy isn't just the symbol that became the NBA logo. It's not just the legendary teams he built over his executive career. It's the standard he set. The standard that says greatness isn't just about stats and championships. It's about character. It's about obsession. It's about understanding that the pursuit of excellence is a never-ending journey. It's about respecting the game enough to give it everything you have, every single day. The players Jerry West respected most were the ones who carried his fire forward. They were the ones who understood that being great meant being obsessed with being great. They were the ones who understood that losing in the finals hurt more than anything else because they cared so much about winning. They were the ones who never settled. They were the ones who always asked, "Can I be better?" And in the end, the 5 players Jerry West respected weren't just the greatest to ever play the game. They were the individuals who allowed West to see his own insatiable desire reflected in the next generation. They ensured that the standard he set as a player would endure long after he left the court. They made sure that the logo didn't just represent a basketball player. It represented an ideal, a standard of excellence that would inspire players for generations to come. Because Jerry West didn't just respect great basketball players, he truly respected great people who happened to play basketball at the highest level. And those people are the ones who made the game fundamentally better. They're the ones who will be remembered not just for what they won, but for how they played the game and how they carried themselves through life.